Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan, the voice behind ThatKaitoDan, and welcome to the final RWBY Volume 5 episode review for episode 14, Haven's Fate. Before we begin, sorry this was a day late. I had to shake off a really rough sick spell, but I am here now, and I also need to cover a few extra notes. Starting with telling you that both my episode 13 reaction and my top 10 RWBY Chibi Season 2 skits video has finally dropped for you to watch, and I'll be sure to link both in the card in the right of the video and in the description down below. Also, I want to thank you guys so much for watching my Volume 5 content. It's not been easy, what with the blocking issues and a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes on my end, but it's been completely worth it to see you guys leave your thoughts on every review and watch me act like a goof in every reaction. You guys make doing this a real treat, and I want to thank all of the now 3,000 plus subscribers and all of you who have watched my stuff these last few weeks and then some. I'll be sure to do something special to celebrate that subscriber milestone in the near future, and I'll do my best to keep you guys entertained through this hiatus, the future volumes, and more. So again, I thank you dearly. And I also want to give my thanks out to the RWBY as well. They all deserve some immense praises and support for what they do. All of them are fantastic folks who put their heart and soul into this show, and I tip my hat to each and every one of them. Oh, and before we begin properly, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode. Moving onward now to your comments based on last week's explosive episode, and of course the maiden fight was a big topic that many of you guys enjoyed, and Epic Link Sam made some fitting comparisons to the bout and the action seen in other notable series. Then we also had Z10 find some irony in Hazel being a pain tank that's also defined by a pain that he just can't help but feel. And Gideon Johnson argued that Adam's surprising curb stomp does make sense as a tactical victory for Blake that even the Renegade couldn't counter. Now don't forget to share your opinions on the finale in the comments down below, as they will feature in the full volume review that will come out in about 2 weeks time. So be sure to leave your thoughts and tune in then to see if your comment made it into the last viewer comment segment of the volume. And back on the subject of last week's episode, it was quite the roller coaster of emotions. While the Blake stuff did have its ups and downs, the maiden tussle was outstanding and a sight to behold as the volume reached the home stretch. So, was the finale able to end on a high note or a sour note? Let's find out. We open with the closing moments of the White Fang's plans in Haven being snuffed out, and it's nice to see Ilya getting thanked for helping out. Stuff like this will make her feel like she is on the right path. Adam though is still being defiant towards Blake, wishing to make her regret standing up to him like this, and he fires off some pot shots at Blake for facing him with backup rather than coming for him alone. In his eyes, this is just another example of her cowardice in dealing with her past, and I honestly do think he's right to some point. Blake likely is still scared of Adam, even after a recent confidence boost, but she's notably fighting that fear to even be here right now, and Blake isn't here to deal with Adam specifically. She's here to make sure Haven is safe, and to stop the White Fang from causing an even bigger divide between the two races. That knocks Adam for a loop a little bit, but he reckons this is just more proof to his claims, and he brags about his new allies in Salem's lot, making him an even bigger threat than the last time the two met. Saying that though, Sun arrives and calls him out on the fact that he's standing here alone with none of that support, while Blake has friends and family as well as strangers willing to fight by her side, regardless of the dangers. That's actually true. Last episode, Hazel told Adam that this is his mess to deal with, not Hazel's, and Adam's White Fang team are now surrendering while he's left high and dry. And Blake adds extra salt in the wounds by saying she's got more important things to deal with at the moment than Adam. That definitely has to sting. A big part of who Adam is is his spite and rage revolving around Blake. Their conflict is just as important to him as his supposed payback on humanity. Yet Blake is actively turning her focus away from him, and that must wound his pride something fierce, while also cementing that his current plans are pretty much blowing up in his face. Everything he's done is all about his selfish and violent intentions, and now Blake's comments have ticked him off royally, leading him to lashing out at the duo. And hey, we get gunchucks again, sweet! Though it only lasts for a few seconds, as Adam heads for the woods. Thankfully, Blake is smart enough to leave him alone, as it's obvious that he would try to use the woods as a way to pick the two off one by one. She's not letting her emotions get the better of her, especially when, as she said, she's got bigger fish to fry. It's a logical reason to have Adam get out of this situation for another day without it feeling cheap in my eyes, and he's doing so while still coming out of it with some heavy losses. And like Blake said herself, it's now his turn to find out what running away like a coward feels like. So while the war between these two will live on, Blake's claimed a very noteworthy victory, while Adam has to process the fact that his target isn't as weak as he first assumed. Blake then thanks Sun for backing her up, and the two then split up, so Blake can aid her team. And good thing too, cause her friends are really starting to lose steam. Hazel's pain immunity semblance means that he's able to take their hits without stopping to let his aura heal, which also means that his aura can recover before they can even get close to reaching his limit. And with Weiss's Queen Lancer summon getting axed off, it's leaving them short on options. That is until the cavalry arrives. And RWBY helps their odds improve by sniping at Leo, which drives the headmaster off with his tail between his legs, leaving the trio of Mercury, Emerald and Hazel, or Team Mare, to take on Team RWBY, complete with a callback to the ship-inspired team attacks with a checkmate callout. Sadly, we don't see the move in action, but it is still nice to see the three quickly reclaim some of their old synchronicity to get a second wind in the fight. While this is going on, down in the vault, Yang is confronting Raven, who tells her daughter not to take the ambush and Raven being on Cinder's side personally. Raven's beef is of course more on Ozpin and Crow, and she felt Yang could handle herself fine since she's her daughter. You know, other than the fact that Yang's actually a skilled huntress in her own right, regardless of her parents. Cheeky bugger. Yang though just quickly addresses Raven being the Spring Maiden, and while it does seem surprising that she caught on to that revelation so quickly, I guess she saw Raven at the treasure room's entrance, Vinal's dead body, and the lack of Cinder, and just connected the dots. She then brings up how Spring, the runaway from Haven, would have had to trust Raven a great deal for her to be in Spring's final thoughts to make the transfer happen. But, much to Raven's possible surprise, Yang has taken Raven's words on questioning everything she's told to heart, and she wants the truth about Raven and Spring's history from her own mouth. And the answer is rather dark. Spring didn't die in battle or from sickness. Raven killed Spring herself. It's a truth that even with their splintered relationship stuns Yang, who asked why she would do such a thing. Turns out, Raven did recruit Spring into her fold after she ran away from Haven. Yet even with Raven's attempts to train her, to make her strong enough to defend herself from those seeking her power or simply just to survive in the world, Spring just couldn't succeed. So Raven did what she did, justifying it as a mercy kill to spare Spring from any more suffering. Wow, again, that's really dark and truly heartbreaking on the part of Spring. Keep in mind that she would have still been a child around that time, and with all the pressure of being a maiden, then trying to survive on her own, and then the pressure of being in Raven's tribe, yeah, she would have struggled with such hurdles in her life. She had to prove herself to Raven, and all she would have wanted even then was just to live a peaceful, stress-free life. But she got constantly thrown into difficult situation after difficult situation. And the fact that Raven has the power even now with the killing incident in mind, shows just how much trust and faith she did put into Raven. Maybe her last hope of finding strength to live on, to help her out, to protect Spring. Only for the bandit leader to make that very cruel choice. I think that's why both Cinder and Yang's comments about that trust irks Raven so much to hear, because she knows the terrible, tragic act that she caused, and even if she regrets it, which most signs seem to point she does, she's trying to convince herself that she did it for the right reasons. Yes, Spring would have been a target. Maybe she wasn't strong enough as she may have needed to be. But that didn't give Raven the right to take the life of a young girl who never even wanted this power in the first place. And Yang calls Raven out on such selfishness, and not just relating to Spring either, but all her past actions with the goal of surviving, as she calls it. It's clear at this point that Yang is starting to tear up all of Raven's fallacies in her thought process, and she goes for the throat by asking if Raven also, metaphorically, killed the Raven that her dad told her about. The Raven that, despite her complications and faults, would fight for her beliefs instead of fleeing, be it for her people or for her old team. To Yang, she's looking at the Raven that is a shell of her former self. Someone who would claim that she's strong enough to do what is necessary, when really, she's just warped by her emotions that caused her to run away, turn her back on those who may need or care for her, or risk harm to them through her rash actions. When the going gets tough, Raven can't handle it, and every lie she's spun since then is more so to convince herself that she isn't afraid of Salem, when in fact, she is. As Yang puts it perfectly, she may be powerful, able to fight with the best of them and come out on top, but she's not truly strong. That final bit with Yang, by the way, was superb, and a brilliant tearing down of Raven's falsehood through Yang's true understanding of strength in the face of fear. After being portrayed as this badass hardened woman, we're seeing the true Raven hiding underneath. Someone who would risk her lieutenant, her family, and her pride because she felt the stronger she could be, the safer she would become, away from this grand conflict, whilst not realizing that in her recent efforts to claim the Relic in her latest attempts at protecting herself, she's risking Salem coming down on her far harder than she did because of the Spring Maiden power. Raven counters in very emotional fashion, by the way, that it's rich that Yang is lecturing her about being afraid when she herself is shaking. But here's the difference. Yang isn't denying her fear. She accepts that she's afraid of what she may face in the future going against Salem. But that fear isn't stopping her from putting up a fight. And so, she stakes her claim to the Relic. Compared to Raven, who can't even admit to herself that she's afraid of Salem, Yang will carry that fear and prepare herself for whatever comes her way, Relic in hand, ready to fight Salem rather than cower in her doubts. And it seems those words are making an impact, as now Raven solemnly pleads for Yang not to do this. There is a part of the bandit that does care for Yang, and she doesn't want to see her daughter risk her life like this. Even so, it's too late. Yang has made up her mind, and even with or without Raven's consent, she's taken the Relic, proving her intentions by walking right through Raven towards the treasure room. And Raven starts to cry. Everything Yang has said has finally hit home. She's began to realize the mistakes she's made. The bandit feeling ashamed, not just for where she's gone wrong, but also the fact that her fear has now led her daughter to now carry a burden that she herself could very easily be carrying, were she emotionally stronger as she is physically. And the two share one final moment together, accepting the roles they now play, before Raven teleports out, her destination revealed later on. So the path is all clear for Yang to retrieve the Relic from the mysterious desert dimension. And I'll say it again that I love the wispy dissolving effects in this land. The glassy effect as well on Yang is actually pretty damn good, and the overall strange atmosphere this realm contains is top notch. Plus, we can now finally see the Relic of Knowledge in full detail, which is a rather nice looking stylized lamp. Now, two things. Firstly, is it just me, or does its design look like the Haven's emblem? Secondly, I wonder if this blue tinted lamp that is kept in a desert is perhaps a reference to the genie of the lamp from the Aladdin story. Either could be a very cool coincidence or just something more detailed in the future, but it's a little tidbit that caught my eye, regardless of it being intentional or not. And at this moment, I believe the weight of everything that just happened, the fact that she's seen the weaker side of her mother that she longed to find, and the burden that she is now faced with, has sunk in for Yang, as she breaks down into tears following one hell of a massive emotion-fueled moment. This scene was fan-freaking-tastic. One of the most powerful and dramatic moments in the entire series, let alone the volume. A golden moment of development for both ladies, and a captivating scene from start to finish in this new chapter of their pair's relationship. Yang has never looked stronger than she has right now, even with her fears and sadness. She's fully deserving of this chance to shine bright in a more stable place than she was following her recent injury. And this was also the perfect combination of Raven being fleshed out into a more layered, engrossing character after so long of just being the badass, stoic, awesome outside figure in the story. And both these fresh growths and burns for each character work off each other so spectacularly to make the breakdown of Raven's actions and Yang's commitment to fighting on feel very much deserved. It's a giant shift in the pair's dynamic. Now Yang has proven to be the stronger person, even if Raven can outmatch her in power. And like how Blake is fighting her own emotions to do what is necessary, Yang is doing the same, making for a nice connection between those two as well. Barbara and Anna, by the way, also helped this scene become, in my personal opinion, the best performed scene in the series so far, taking that crown from Pyrrha's Destiny talk in Volume 3, at least for me. Both ladies knocked it out of the park in terms of their raw, believable emotion, and this scene wouldn't have worked half as well as it did without their quality performance. They truly deserve high praise for making sure that this vital scene in their respective characters' tales is a moment of true quality. Now it's time that we carry on, and Leo is looking to make a quick getaway from Haven, until he realizes he's not alone. The Seagrim is here too, with Salem on the other end of the connection, and she wants an update. Leo nervously eventually spills the beans on Cinder's reworking of the plan, the White Fang's efforts being halted, and the unlikelihood of their group retrieving the relic. Salem's response? Total unsettling silence. Oh boy. Leo's time is running up, and he puts the nail in his own coffin after trying to strike first, before the Seagrim's tendrils have a grip on the headmaster, and in another well-crafted yet very chilling scene, Leo is killed off screen in violent fashion. Poor Leo. I mean, he had it coming after all he did, but in the end, his cowardice became his undoing. Though it's interesting that we do not see Salem's response to the events in Haven. Obviously, she'll be far from pleased to lose a relic, and if Cinder is dead, she'll need to do some major adapting of her plans for her next relic grabbing attempt to go off without a hitch. The current plan is looking even more like a total bust now that the heroes have the edge, though Emerald is remaining hopeful that Cinder will soon arrive. Cue for a bit of tragic irony when up comes Yang with the relic, and now their scheme is pretty much dead in the water. By the way, there's an odd background sound in this scene of Emerald finally understanding what has likely happened to Cinder, which, may be nothing, but since it appeared with her in the shot, and theories being what they are, could that have been a hint that Emerald has now gained the maiden power from Cinder if she is truly dead. That sound never pops up again, and it doesn't quite fit with the positive victory tune that's currently playing, so I can't picture what else it may be there for other than hinting that possibility. Regardless, the mission is a total failure, and they need to go. But Emerald's emotions are all over the place now that she's lost the one person who kept her going, and she can't handle the pain any longer. Suddenly, her screams of anguish signal the room turning into a black and red haze, and inside a dark spiral comes a giant, freaky-looking, screaming Salem. Hot damn! I guess it turns out the opening was foreshadowing this Titan-sized Salem appearance. I guess I was wrong in my prediction there. But after the spooky sight washes over the students and leaving them shaking in fear, we find out the villains are now gone. And that wasn't really Salem, only an illusion that was obviously created by an unstable Emerald and her hallucination semblance. Either way, it has allowed the students to finally see the face of their enemy, and in such a frightening method too. The appearance may have been an illusion, but the fear isn't. They'll have to will themselves forward through this crazy first impression of their rival to prepare for the moment that they finally meet the Wicked Witch. Also, as expected, that hallucination has knocked Emerald out cold, as we then see Hazel, Mercury, and an unconscious Emerald hightailing it out of Haven. Remember back at the tournament that Emerald did say that using her power on 2 people gave her a rough headache, so an outburst like this, obviously affecting several people, no doubt took a lot out of her. As the group retreat, we also see Adam overlooking them, before running off in seemingly a different direction. After failing hard in this scheme, one will have to wonder if either Adam or Salem will welcome the opportunity to work with the other once again. Salem could definitely use as many points as she can now that she's lost Cinder potentially, but then again I doubt she'd be happy with Adam complicating things with his own personal vendetta, so she may cut her losses and move on. Meanwhile, Adam could definitely use some backing up as well after losing stock among the White Fang now that he's deserted some of his comrades, though he may also be feeling that Salem's lot betrayed him, so maybe he will regroup and focus solely on collecting as many White Fang support as he can in time for their next confrontation with Blake and her army. It'll be intriguing as well to see what Emerald and Mercury will do now that they've lost their mentor figure. Salem will likely need them to keep her numbers strong, and I predict both will stay on board, be it due to fear of Salem, no other means to live on by themselves, or vengeance, especially on the part of Emerald. I doubt we're gonna get a redemption arc for her now folks, sadly. No matter what happens, the villains definitely took a massive loss tonight, and will need to come back stronger next time out. And so, Haven is safe, minus a few scars, and everyone finally has a chance to catch their breath and come together. Ilya shares with the Belladonnas that because of Adam deserting his followers, that should cause some division within the White Fang, between those who will remain loyal to him and those who would choose not to follow the leadership of someone who willingly give up his men to save his own ass. This now signals the prime opportunity for a new Faunus Haven for those who will truly wish for peace among the Faunus and humans, and it seems like Kali is touting Gira to become the leader of this new group. Guess that makes sense, though I wonder if he'll be taking this to the road and recruiting new followers, or making Menagerie the home base for this new faction. A part of me also wished that Blake would be the new leader, but she's still got plenty of time to assume that role in the future. And she has somewhere else she needs to be right now, once Sun gives her the right push. Yang meanwhile passes on the relic to Crow and shares the fate of Cinder, Vernal and Raven. But now, it's time for the moment that we've all been waiting for. Yes, even me, despite saying in my predictions video that I would prefer the group stayed incomplete a little while longer. But I think it is the right time for all 4 RWBY girls to share a rather adorably awkward reunion after so long apart. It's a cute scene with obviously a lot of tense feelings brewing among the happy faces, largely on the part of Yang, who is initially hesitant to welcome Blake back, though she does accept it in the end. So after their splintering in Beacon and after being spread across Remnant, Team RWBY is whole once again, and the four share a long overdue hug, while we get the chorus of a new song called All That Matters, a fitting ballad piece even in this short sample, reflecting on thoughts of those dear to us that are far away and now returning. Each of these girls have taken strides forward in life, some more so than others admittedly, and while I think we will still have some bumpy moments, especially with Blake and Yang, I do think now's the right time for the reunion. So now the group can work together in preparation for the next intense conflict heading their way. And this should also allow the writers to have an easier structure to work around, with less split timelines or tonal shifts between arcs to balance. As the touching moment goes on, we then see Crow check in on Ozpin, only to find out that it's Oscar who's now regained control. Turns out Ozpin can't be the leading soul in this body and fight in such a hard-hitting battle for too long before getting tired and needing rest. At least it's nice to see Crow instantly grow more concerned for the young farm boy now that it's clear that he's also feeling the after effects of a fiery battle, but before he passes out, Oscar shares a message from Ozpin, telling Crow that they need to take the lamp to Atlas. So that reveals the next kingdom of focus will be the Northern Kingdom. But why Atlas specifically? There's no clue currently that hints that that will be Salem's next target compared to Vacuo, so unless there is a clue that's still to be revealed or a set sequence that you need to follow in terms of collecting the relics, the destination is kinda out of the blue. Perhaps to unlock the Relic of Knowledge's true power, you need the connection with Atlas's relic. Reasons aside, I am excited to see what Atlas will bring. Not just for the fact that it's the first relic hunt with a reunited Team RWBY, but also the fact that we'll have a chance to see what's happened up north following Ironwood's lockdown and Weiss's escape. Though yeah, poor Weiss. She just got out and now she's being pulled back in. At least this may also signal the return of Winter and maybe even Penny. And with the relic lighting up in what I imagine is only really a symbolic touch, the episode ends. Though we've got two more topics to discuss. First, the new credits song, which is actually something that myself and many others have been waiting on for so long. A From Shadows Part 2. Though the song itself is actually called This Time From Shadows Part 2. Shout out again to Flint of RWBY and Jeff Williams for the full lyrics, and with it, we can see that this rocking tune is pretty much echoing Blake's previous speech from back in Menagerie, asking her fellow Faunus to realise their inaction is allowing for their past hope of peace to be abused and forgotten, with the threat to Haven and the White Fang under Adam causing chaos. Thus the call to arms to strike first and defend those who will need it in this war, as well as form the brotherhood that Gira mentioned out of the ashes of the White Fang, and with Blake fighting beside them, those willing and able can perhaps make a difference this time. It's another passionate and blood-pumping tune to close out a volume with, and an excellent representation of Blake's reignited resolve. So yeah, it's definitely worth the wait for the part 2. Then of course we got the traditional stinger scene, which, this time out, is seen over in Patch that Ty's gardening is interrupted as he notices something interesting fly away. And obviously, that bird is Raven. Makes sense, I mean, the only portal that she could use to get out of the vault was the one connected to Ty, with Anar being dead and the others all leading back to Haven anyway. Does this hint though that Raven may have a moment with Ty in the future? Perhaps Yang's comments shook her core hard enough to inspire Raven to make up for some of her past actions and reconnect with those she abandoned. I'm doubtful. I think it's just explaining how Raven got out, but you never know, Yang's words may have struck a chord in Raven to reflect on the wrong path she's taken. We'll have to wait and see what lies ahead in her future. So, another day, another volume finale is done. And straight away, I will admit that it did feel rather thin. We don't get a lot of the actual aftermath from this battle, and in fact there wasn't actually any noteworthy action at all shown on screen. However, I'm actually okay with this. I think that it's clear that the way the volume has been structured, that it feels more like it's a volume long watch rather than an episode by episode structure. Episode 13 became the unspoken Part 1 finale where all the action was kept, while episode 14 was the second part of the finale that focused on the character side of things before the volume drew to a close. The aftermath stuff with more of Team RWBY enjoying their reunion, Oscar and Ozpin needing some rest, and the next moves being planned will most likely be addressed in the first episode of Volume 6, which I can accept, and it should hopefully be worth the wait and a good way to set the pace for that volume. But thin episode or not, I still consider this a very solid episode. Maybe not one of the strongest and most rewarding volume finales in the series, but I still came out of it feeling satisfied and unable to say that I wasn't entertained. Blake defying Adam and realigning herself back into the main story was definitely well accomplished. Blake focusing herself on Haven and her friends more so than Adam doesn't come off as an aimless shift, but rather a worthwhile sign of growth in the Catgirl that shows her issues with Adam doesn't define every action of her life. Her world doesn't revolve around Adam, which is a realization for Adam that will challenge him as her antagonist. I at the very least came away from Blake's emotional counter to Adam a lot more content than I was with the physical side from last episode. Time will come when Adam's issue will need to be addressed again, and Blake will need to steel herself for that true clash between the two's beliefs and emotions, but for now, I am happy with her progress that was showcased in this episode, putting her in a prime position to accept the all-new twists and turns that she'll be facing in her future, and to do so with some good support, namely in Sun and Ilya, who also had some very solid parts in the episode as well, even though they are brief, showing that they're not just going through this alone. I'm curious, mind you, as to what's next for Blake's buds and her parents now that she's back with her team. Perhaps Sun and Ilya will now aid Gira and Carly with forming the new Faunus Brotherhood until Blake and the others need some backup over in Atlas. And the RWBY reunion itself was again totally awkward, yet incredibly sweet. It fitted the group's current emotions, with Weiss and RWBY being all on board from the get-go, while Blake and Yang were hesitant in their own way. And while I am still hoping to see some hurdles in terms of the group's full chemistry, plus I want to see some stuff with Blake and Yang needing more time to get back on equal footing, overall it was really charming, and worth all the hype and wait for sure. One worry that I did have in terms of the episode was with the villains getting out in a logical and believable way, though I am happy to say that it was decently accomplished without me having any real issues with it. Adam running away definitely works great as a reflection of Blake's past and her dominance over him this time out, while Leo's led to a somewhat sad yet understandable and sinister end, and the others exiting during a horrifying illusion of Salem, as I said before, does work in terms of Emerald's suffering and in providing the grand reveal to the students of just who they are actually facing in better detail than just some simple image or description. The standout highlight though of this episode is without a doubt Yang and Raven's conversation. Yang needed this moment almost as much, and maybe even more so, than Blake did with hers, so she could fight off some of her demons from her past relating to her mother and boost her confidence in a way that was incredibly satisfying as she stripped Raven's pride down to her core. This will serve as a spirited accomplishment after being at rock bottom not too long ago. And as much as I gave major due praise to the actresses involved, I also really want to praise the directing and the animation side too, who were on top form in this sequence, especially in terms of the music not being used in most of the scene. It was a very wise idea to have most of the major dispute lacking any sound bar the acting, letting the actresses and the animation itself sell the emotions expertly. It was also good to how it flowed into the next scene in terms of the music actually creating a soothing yet mystifying ambience for the desert realm, while not forgetting the heavy emotions that just came a moment earlier. Also, while I want to congratulate the likes of Damon, Aaron, Garrett and Katie for their stellar voice work in this episode, Barbara and Anna gave the performance of a lifetime in their shared scene. They both gave me chills and captured my fullest attention, and I couldn't think of two performers who better deserve my voice acting gold star than these two fantastic individuals. And that's it. That was the finale episode of Volume 5. Was it a short one? Yeah, and it definitely could have had more meat to it, but at the same time, it brought closure to various current arcs while setting the stage for events to come, while also offering enough entertainment on its own merits. So it does the main goal of a volume finale fine enough in my book, despite the ways that it could have been much stronger. What it lacked in action and length, it did made up for in drama and character moments to savor. And with the team reunited at last, and with the heroes taking their first crucial victory, the doors are open for a new wave of exciting scenarios to come, and I cannot wait to see where the story takes us now that we are returning to Atlas. But these are, as always, just my opinion, and I want to know yours. Did you enjoy the last entry of the volume? Did you see ways that it could have been better? Are you happy to see Team RWBY back together? And what do you want to see in the next volume? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe and bell buttons to make sure you get every new video from me as they drop. And definitely be sure to follow me on Twitter at ThatKaitoDan for more on all things RWBY, as well as keeping up to date with what I have in store next, beyond the volume and also Chibi, and much more. Once again, I thank you all for watching my content this volume, and I thank all of the RWBY for a memorable season. Here's to Volume 6 and beyond. And until next time, have a good day or good night, and peace out.